Welcome back to Make It Stick. Let's jump into Anki. Yesterday we had no flashcards. That was rare. Today we've only got one. What do we got? What role does feedback play in retrieval practice? Feedback. Oof. It helps solidify correct understanding, and it helps actually to discover incorrect answers and misunderstandings, especially when feedback is delayed. Feedback helps correct errors and reinforce correct knowledge, especially when delayed after the retrieval times. Boom. That was pretty good. We'll see that again in 3.2 months. All right. Let's go. Wow. I just realized we have a 32-day streak on Anki without even trying. What did we learn about yesterday? Oh, I remember I said I'm going to remember where we ended the day before, which was the Flynn effect. So what came after that? All right. We're talking about increasing IQ. Okay. Right. So in general, there's a lot of junk science when it comes to intelligence and intelligence increasing. However, after a systematic review and a stringent, rigorous review, there were some findings that were reported in this book on ways to, or on things that were correlated with increasing IQ. Many of them have to do, at least with what were discussed in this book so far, with early development in the womb and as a young child or baby, especially for poor children. Yeah. So, before I get into that, there's this guy named Nisbet who wrote a book called Intelligence and How to Get It. And he talks about the Flynn effect and how IQ has been increasing, and hypothesizes that the answer or the reason largely for the increasing IQ maybe largely that we have increased stimulation and stimuli in the modern world that didn't exist before. New tools, new patterns, new problems, much more abundantly. And then he talked about, so this is environmental stimuli, I think, but he talked about environmental multipliers. So curiosity being an environmental multiplier, where with all the access to modern stimuli, having curiosity can lead you to seek out more information and more knowledge and more learning. Right, we talked about fluid intelligence versus crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence being your ability to reason abstractly. This is part of the next section, but I'll just do it now. It's called brain training. Right, we got fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence, abstract reasoning, and problem solving, critical thinking, and reasoning, logical reasoning. Can this be improved through brain training? Because we know we can improve crystallized intelligence, which is essentially your knowledge, through effective study techniques and learning techniques. So that was as far as we got in the next section, but let's go back to, is IQ mutable? We know, yes, it is mutable, it increases, but what are things that have been clearly shown in evidence to increase IQ? Okay, first of all, omega-3 or fatty acid supplements a pregnant woman takes, or the child takes, a breastfeeding mother takes. This has been shown to increase IQ. A lot of this other stuff is about education, early education, reading to the child, talking to the child, asking open-ended questions to the child, engaging the child, especially for children that are in poorer families and less socioeconomically fit families. And the idea is because higher socioeconomic status leads to children having more stimulation, maybe more toys, more attention, more access to resources than a poor child. And so the real strong evidence has been shown for these less financially well children. These have been shown the strongest to improve IQ. Like the things I said, being read to, talked to, etc. Interestingly, one of the researchers says that there wasn't a direct correlation with earlier education. Like the earlier the higher the IQ increase, say from 2 to 3 or 4, was the 2-year-old did he have more IQ that increase than the 4-year-old? Well, he said no, and emphasized that it was about the stimulation, in general, and not at the timing, and that's not a narrow window of intelligence growth for these children. However, kind of contradictingly, not too much later in the reading, they say that reading to a child before age of 4 is directly related to IQ increase, and reading to them after the age of 4 does not increase their IQ, but it increases their language development. So it's like there are windows, there are like better times than others. I think we got everything. So we're going to find out today if brain training increases fluid intelligence or can. Other supplements show promise, including the fat, beyond the fatty acids, but don't have strong evidence yet, or definitive evidence, I would say. So socioeconomic status is directly correlated with IQ. Higher IQ. I postulated Sternberg's successful intelligence as an explanation, as well as better nutrition and a more nurturing and stimulating environment. All right, environmental multiplier is cool. We're going to continue reading now. We're going to find out the answer to the question of if brain training can increase fluid intelligence. So I'll be back in a bit. All right, guys, there was a ton there. We finished up the section on brain training. Essentially, they described the Swiss study that found that brain training could increase fluid intelligence, but said that has not been supported or repeatable. And so really there isn't any evidence for increasing fluid intelligence in adulthood, as far as I could tell. I use ChatGPT as well to verify that, and even now in 2025, there's very little evidence about increasing fluid intelligence in adulthood. Doesn't mean you can't increase your intelligence. Crystallized intelligence is part of your generalized intelligence. So you can become smarter, you can increase your intelligence. Fluid intelligence, we don't know. I personally think there's potential for things such as changes in lifestyle, as well as potentials in psychoactive substances, such as psychedelics, to potentially have a chance of increasing fluid intelligence in adulthood. However, there's not much evidence to support either one of those. There is evidence that supports maintenance of your fluid intelligence via healthy lifestyle, but yeah. So yeah, they found that basically these brain trainings would increase their ability to score well on a specific type of fluid intelligence test, the one that was being training, but that there was very little transfer to other fluid intelligence tests. So that wasn't likely working generally. It was more training the specific skill. Fluid intelligence is largely determined by your working memory capacity. So they thought that these brain training sessions and practice would increase working memory capacity, but in reality, it was just basically increasing their ability to perform specific obscure tasks. The brain is not like a muscle. It's not where you get smarter. You train one area and the whole brain gets smarter. It's more like you train one area and that area gets better with typically very little transfer. But I don't fully believe that statement, because if you have more information to connect new information to, you can learn new things faster. So I still think there's some aspect of meta learning to all learning. That is, that learning anything makes learning anything after faster and easier. There's going to be caveats there with age and cognitive decline as well, but I still generally believe there's something there to that. So rather than talking about increasing fluid intelligence, they're going to talk about now the rest of the chapter is really how do we get the most out of our current fluid intelligence? How do you get the most out of it? And the way to do that in the rest of the chapter, it's going to be explained through growth mindset, deliberate practice, and constructing memory cues. And then I kind of asked the question to myself at the beginning of this, and that is, what are Nesbitt's multipliers, environmental multipliers? What does that mean? And with the answer at the end of the chapter, it's really clarified more like small genetic differences, such as a tiny bit more curiosity, can lead to an outsized effect due to an environmental multiplier, an environment such as the modern environment versus an environment in the past. The multiplier was much smaller, so the small genetic difference wouldn't make a big difference. That's kind of the idea. Then I wrote down is IQ an attempt to measure fluid intelligence or generalized or crystallized intelligence and fluid intelligence. It's crystallized and fluid, but not even just that. It's more about G, which is specific or is more generalized intelligence, which crystallized intelligence is part of, so is fluid, and maybe there's more as well aspects. So that's basically it for today. We're ending off here at the end of the section on brain training. Tomorrow we'll start off with answering what this section was about, and then we'll start into the growth mindset section, which is exciting for me. A couple pages on growth mindset. It's one of my top 10, not even top 10, but like one of my favorite books, most impactful books I've read, and I've not even fully read it. It's kind of similar to this book, how I read it at night, just a couple pages or a page at a time, and eventually didn't finish it completely, and we'll actually go back and read it through like I've been reading through this. There's a good chance that after I finish Mega Stick, I'll start reading Mindset in a similar way. But we're on page 179 now. I think it's just cool to like just look at like how much writing is in this book now. Personal writing. I guess you can't, it's pretty hard to show this, but just like, dozens of hours of reading and writing and recalling. So we're getting close now. About probably halfway through chapter 7, so that's crazy. But that's it for today. Talk to you tomorrow. See ya.